Hey everybody, Jonathan here, and I'm going to show you how to change the oil on a 2013 Toyota Venza. So first, you want to jack up the car with your floor jack. Get it high enough to where you can put the jack stands on each side of the car. And then you're going to want to lower the car onto the jack stands. Next, you're going to need an oil filter, the oil drain plug gasket, and you're also going to need a oil filter socket wrench tool to remove the filter housing from the car. You need at least 6.4 quarts of oil for this model of Venza, and the funnel as well. Next, you need a 14 millimeter socket. This is a 6-point socket. And you're going to want to go counterclockwise to remove the drain plug. And then you're going to let the oil just pour out. I'm going to fast forward it here. And then next, you're going to want to use a tool that's not sharp on the end. This is going to be a drive spinner handle that came with my socket tools. So make sure you insert it all the way in. It's going to help you remove the gasket that sometimes gets stuck to the pan. But make sure you insert it all the way in and just slightly tilt it, and it'll just snap right off. That way you don't damage the threads on the pan. Next, we're going to grab a 3/8 extension bar along with a 3/8 ratchet. And you're going to want to go counterclockwise to remove the bottom cap on the filter housing. And next, there is a plastic tool that comes with the oil filter. And the plastic tool here that you see, it just helps you drain out the oil inside the filter housing before you remove it so it's less messy. You don't have to use this. You can if you want, but I'm showing you the proper way of doing it. And it's a little hard at first to snap it in. Don't worry, it won't break. Just push it real hard upwards and it'll snap into place. And I'm going to fast forward again while we let the oil drain out. Next, all you do is just tilt it sideways and it'll just snap right off. It seems a little hard at first, but don't worry, it won't break. Next, replace the bottom cap. Just hand tighten it so that way the oil's not dripping when you use the wrench tool. Next, we're going to use a 15/16 6-point socket with the filter socket wrench tool. And you're going to see that right now. So just attach it to the filter housing. And then we're going to go counterclockwise on this one as well. And just loosen it up to where you can do it with your hand. And there will still be a little bit of oil inside the housing, just a little bit. So just make sure you just dump it out. And then we're going to remove the oil filter. And also remove the O-ring. There is a little notch in the metal so that you can grab it. It's a little hard at first, especially if it's got oil all over it, but you can do it. Next, I like to clean out, this is just me, it's just OCD. Clean the oil filter housing so that the oil is not dripping all over the place. And then next, sometimes the wrench tools do get stuck to the oil filter housings. Just tap it a little bit with the wrench, and it'll just come right off. Next, we're going to remove the bottom cap again. We're going to replace the O-ring. The O-ring actually came off with the plastic tool that I used when I was draining out the oil from the bottom of the housing, as you can see here. So we're going to clean it again, and then we're going to put the O-rings on the filter housing as well. And you can see they look a little bit dry. They're white. It's just a powder that they use. It's like what you see on latex gloves. So just get your finger a little oil on your fingers and just rub the oil all around the O-rings. And you can see here, I replaced the O-ring on the bottom, just like that. Then you're going to replace the bottom cap, clean it off a little bit. Little housekeeping doesn't hurt. And put a little bit of oil on your fingers again. I like to put the oil on the threads. That way it it doesn't seize up, or it's easier to also put it back together. That's just me. That's just how I like to do it. Hand tighten it for now. We'll tighten it later when it's back on the car. It's actually easier when it's back on the car. Do the same thing with this O-ring. Get a little bit of oil that's already left on your fingers before you put it on the filter housing. Make sure you get it in the correct groove. I'm going to show you that right now. The correct groove is the biggest one. And just make sure you slide it all the way down to the biggest groove, all the way around. And that's the correct groove right there. And then next, we're going to put the oil filter into the housing. And the next step that we're going to do, it's optional. You don't have to do this, but I believe that when the oil filter housing is just full of air, when you turn on the car, it's just a big jolt of air that's running through the system. So I put 0.4 quarts of oil into the housing before I put the housing back into the car, into the engine. But like I said, it's optional. You don't have to do that if you don't want. Next, we're going to just clean out the area where the housing goes, because it's just dripping oil. So like I said, a little housekeeping doesn't hurt. And then next, we're going to put the housing back into the engine. And take your time. You don't want to strip anything. And just hand tighten it as far as you can go. You'll feel a little resistance as it gets tighter. And then this is where when we're going to use the oil filter socket wrench tool to tighten it. And just tighten it snug. You don't want to over tighten it because you don't want it to get stuck. And then we're going to remove the wrench tool. And then we're going to tighten the bottom cap with the ratchet tool, the 3/8 one. And again, just tighten it snug. You don't want to over tighten. And then the next thing we're going to do is put the oil drain plug gasket onto the oil drain plug. And just with a little bit of oil, just rub it around the threads and also the oil drain plug gasket. I only do all this with the lubricating the threads and everything, just to prevent it from seizing up or getting stuck. And just go clockwise on this one. Remember, lefty loosey and righty tighty. And just tighten it snug. You don't want to strip these because they will get stuck if you over tighten them. And sometimes they get stuck where you can't actually remove the drain plug. So next you're going to want to raise the car, remove the jack stands, and then you're going to want to lower the car all the way down to the ground. Then we're going to remove the cap on top of the engine. We're going to fill it up with 6 quarts. This container only holds 5, so we're going to dump the whole bottle in. And then what I like to do is measure out a quart into a container, and you can see the lines. And then just dump the other quart into the engine as well. And then replace the cap on top. Tighten it. Then you're going to go turn the car on. And we're going to let the car run for about 5 minutes to, warm up the car just a little bit. And then just turn off the car. And you have to let the car sit again for about 5 minutes to let the oil drip all the way down to the bottom of the pan. And then we're going to measure it with the dipstick. Clean it off. And you're just going to dip it in there real quick and take it out. And then you want to measure it, and you want to make sure that it's at the top dot. And that'll tell you that it's full. If it's a little bit short, especially if you didn't fill the oil filter housing, just add a little bit of oil, little at a time, and you'll be good to go. And then, so I hope you liked this video. Please hit the like button if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel, as I do just randomly upload videos of anything that I'm doing, or any unboxings, or anything that's car related. Thanks again for watching, and have a good one.